Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Attack on Productions. Fluff here, bringing you another deck profile. But before we get into that, make sure to do all the YouTubey stuff, like, comment, subscribe below. So as you can see, we today are profiling King Vegeta. So this is Nick's variant of the build, and I had run my version, but I really liked Nick's version better. I think it has more pivot in the late game. It's probably a little bit more consistent, and as you can see, it's probably a little more what you might come to expect out of King Vegeta, with a little bit of spice thrown in there. So starting off with the leader, we've got King Vegeta. So when you start the game, you basically start with Young Invaders in the play area. When this card attacks, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and you add 1 mono red sand with an energy cost of 5 or less and add it to your hand. When you or your opponent are at 4 or less life, you get to choose one of your energy, switch it to active mode, draw 1 card, and then take your life down until you have 5 left. If you're above 5, like if your opponent is at, say your opponent's at 4, you're at 8, you take yourself down to 5 life, and then you flip the card over. On the back, we keep up a lot of the same, but this time we're going to reduce the combo cost of all red sand cards in your hand by 1. So, and then also when you attack, you get your draw, and then once per turn, when the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is decreased, by effect, you choose that card, and it gains minus 10,000 for the turn. So the deck really likes to neg out power. It really likes to go aggressive, control-y, that different type of thing, and the leader fits in perfect to that. So we're going to look over Young Invaders. Young Invaders is one of those cards that just does a lot for the deck. So if leader is a King Vegeta BR, which it is, at the start of your opponent's turn, you're going to play a red sand with an energy with a power level of 500 or less to their side of the field. They will, of course, get their effects. Most of them have a 5,000 combo, so your opponent has to spend energy to combo them off. But then also activate main, you can add 1 card from your life to your hand, and then you can play one of those same sand cards from your deck to your side of the field in rest mode with their skills negated. Then the last activate main, for 1 energy once per turn, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards and it gets minus 5,000 for the turn. So it doesn't always come up, but in tandem with the leader, that can neg out something that's 15,000, or if they have a small, 5,000 on the field that's bothering you, Young Invaders will get rid of it for you. Then moving on to our 1-drops, we play 3 of the Vegeta, the Young Invader, and we play 3 of the Raditz, Young Invader. So these guys are basically the same thing. The biggest difference, so the Vegeta, it has unique when the card is played. If the life is 4 or less, or 5 or less, your opponent takes 1 card from their life, puts it in their drop area, and then they draw 1 card. And then once per turn, if one of your battle cards is attacked, you choose that card and it gains 5,000. So it sounds kind of weird, but these cards are written from the perspective of that they are played on your opponent's side of the field, not when they are played on your side of the field. So you use Young Invader to play the Vegeta to your opponent's side of the field. They essentially crit a life, then draw 1, so they lose whatever card was in their life. And then if the Vegeta's on the field and you attack one of their cards, it loses 5,000. So that also affects the leader if you happen to choose the leader. The Raditz does everything the Vegeta does, except for the if one of your opponent's cards is attacked. So keep that in mind. It won't have the negging effect. Usually these guys won't stay on your opponent's field long enough for it to matter. So don't worry about that, but we do play those as our targets. Then moving on to the Vegeta side of things. So we've got SS Vegeta switching gears. When this card is played, you basically choose 1 card in your hand, place it at the bottom of your deck, then draw 2 cards. And then it has an activate main. For no energy, you choose a Raditz or a Vegeta with an energy cost of 500, or with a power of 500. Send it to the bottom of your deck, and then you play this card. So the Vegeta or Raditz can be on your field or your opponent's side of the field. Doesn't matter, but this is basically how we're going to get up our chain. Switching gears lets us draw cards as our opponent. As we move through the deck, it lets us filter the quality of cards in our hand, and it lets us recover our Vegeta chain for 1 energy less than we would otherwise. This card's incredibly important and probably the MVP of the deck. Then the original Vegeta for the deck, SSG Vegeta to the next level. So a lot like the Switching Gears Vegeta, this card can be played by sending a Vegeta or Raditz from your or your opponent's side of the field with a power of 500 or less, or with an original power of 500, and then it plays this card. When this card is played, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add 1 red Saiyan with an energy cost of 5 or less, or a Unison with a specified cost of 1 among them, add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. He's also got unique critical, but he is a 19,000. So this guy, you can swing. It's a 19,000 crit, which is really awesome in early stages of the game because you don't want your opponent to be able to add cards from their life to their hand. You do have the option to go pretty wide and pretty aggressive with this deck, so you want that crit pressure. And then it also really highly motivates your opponent to combo out of attacks that they would not have normally comboed out of. So, fantastic card, run it at a 4 of at all times. And then the capstone to the Vegeta engine is SS Blue Vegeta at full power. This is a deflect triple strike. It's a 5-drop, 25,000. It's an EX Evolve for 3 energy off of a red Vegeta with an energy cost of 3. So it would be Switching Gears or to the next level, whichever one you have. And then when one of your opponent's battle cards is played or attacks, you choose that card and it gets minus 10,000 for the turn. So when this card is in rest mode, now anytime your opponent plays a card or attacks with a card, that card will get minus 10,000. Then when you consider that with the leader, that's an additional 10,000 on top of that. So it pretty much can control what your opponent is going to do. So if they play at 15,000, it instantly becomes a 5,000. If they attack with it, it's dead. That effect isn't once per turn, and it doesn't stop one way or the other. Then we have auto. When this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, place 1 card from your opponent's life into their drop area. So it's a huge de-incentivizer for your opponent to remove this guy by skill, and instead they want to just run into it and KO it. So 3 of those, great capstone for the deck. Then on to the Goku component, we've got 4 of the SSG Goku to the next level. This is very similar to the Vegeta to the next level, except when he's played, you basically get a blocker on field that gets to restand at the end of the turn. It does get to play off of a Goku or Raditz with an energy or with an original power of 500, but we only play the Raditz, so we just want to use the Raditz to be able to play the Goku. But it's a 19,000 swing that gets to restand and block, and it also restands if it uses its blocker once per turn. So 2 blocks during your opponent's turn, and it restands at the end of your turn. And then the other Goku card that we run the Preemptive Strike SSG Son Goku. So this is a Sparking 2. When it's played, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you add 1 Gogeta BR or 1 Vegeta BR. Add it to your hand, shuffle your deck, and then choose 1 card from your hand and place it in the drop area. So this is really good for finding various pieces throughout the deck. All the Vegetas that we looked at earlier are targets, and as you'll see later, we do run the Gogeta package in here, so it'll find any piece of that as well. And then activate main. Once per turn, this card gains 5,000 power for the duration of the turn, and then you return this card to the owner's hand at the end of the turn. So it's a 10,000 swinger. It actually fits really well into the deck. I don't know that you necessarily need to cast it for 2, but it is a fusion target with the Switching Gears, which is the main reason that we're running it, just in case we have both there. And then as another aggro piece, we're running the Chain Attack Bardock. These are the promos. It does have a Bond 3 Red Saiyan or Bardock's crew. It gains 11,000 in crit, so it becomes a 15,000 crit for 1 energy. And then when it attacks, you choose one of your opponent's cards. It gets minus 4,000 power for each of your Red Saiyan cards or Bardock crew in your battle area. So again, with the leader, that can easily neg. You know, if you've got the 3 battle cards to trigger the Bond 3, then you're looking at 22,000 off of 1 card just for this guy attacking, which is pretty sweet. It's 1 energy. It's fantastic pressure. Again, crit. Your opponent's more likely to combo out of this and waste cards in their hand trying to survive it. Super combos, we're looking at the Raditz Saiyan Youth. Quality super combos, you know I'm big on these. I'm not going to change much on that. Gogeta package, we're running 3 of the 5 drops, 3 of the 6 drops. Gogeta's good. For 3 energy, use a Goku and Vegeta BR, whose original power is the same as it was from your hand. Then you draw 1 card, and then you EX evolve into a target that once per turn, when it attacks, or when your opponent attacks, you can choose a card on your opponent's side of the field, and it gets minus 20,000 power for the turn. And then the skill is negated. But it's a 35,000, practically indestructible double strike that it's super hard for your opponent to remove unless they have like max power Kamehameha. But when you consider this with the 5-drop Vegeta on the field, it could easily neg out something that's 4,000 or higher. And it provides multiple levels of defense for you against your opponent. So we do run that package. Moving on to unisons, we run 4 of the Dark Mass Saiyan, or Black Mass Saiyan. So once per turn, when your opponent adds a card from their life to their hand, you get to place a marker on this card. And then if it's your turn when that happens, this card gets 5,000 power. So you swing with your leader, your opponent takes the damage. You add a marker to this unison, and then the unison gets 5,000 power, making it a 15. And then it's +0. When your opponent plays a battle card, your opponent chooses that card, it gets minus 5,000 power if they don't add 2 markers to this card. So again, with the leader, that could instantly kill a 5,000. Or if you've got the 5-drop Vegeta on field, that could instantly kill a 25,000. If they don't, you just get to add 2 markers to this card. And then -4, this card gets 15,000 power and double strike for the turn. So it essentially makes the card a 30,000 double strike for -4. It's actually pretty easy to get this card way up there. Good unison for the deck, and it actually really fits the theme. Secret rare is going to be the Gohonks. This secret rare is crazy. So I'm sure you all know what this card does. When this card is played, you choose all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier. They get minus 25,000, so it essentially can clear your opponent's field. Then +1 auto. When your opponent attacks with a battle card, you choose that card, it gets minus 25,000. He is a blocker, and he does have dual attack. Then -4, this card gains 15,000 power and triple strike until the end of the turn, then switch this card to active mode. So you could swing with this card, go through the damage, -4, restand it. It's now a 40,000 triple strike on that last attack. So absolutely fantastic. But I wanted to point out, if you have the Gohonks, the Gogeta, and the 5-drop Vegeta on the field, your opponent has to play through a ton of negates to just get to your life total, because the Vegeta is going to -10 whenever a card is played or it attacks. The Gogeta can -20 if a card attacks, and then the Gohonks can -25 if the card attacks, and you choose to activate the auto. So your opponent has to play through a ton of possible negates in order to just get through that point in the field. And it's incredibly unbreakable. Unless your opponent has a solution to that, it's very hard to play around this, and it puts a quite pressuring field presence on. Then moving on to extra cards, we do run 3 Violent Rays. This is just to stop big attacks or things that want to go wide. If your opponent's put a big unison out there, you want to stop it, Violent Ray will get us there. Then we run 3 King Vegeta's Imposing Presence. This deck can go down to life. It can go to 3 pretty fast. When you consider all the negs that the deck is already doing, the 10,000 and then 5,000 on each subsequent attack is very relevant in this deck and can oftentimes just shut your opponent down. So we're running 3 of those. And then as spice to protect our field, Strategies of U7. So Nick put this in there, and when you think about the 6-drop Gogeta, one of the easiest ways to get rid of it is max power Kamehameha. But if you slap a Strategies of U7 down, that card is no longer affected by max power Kamehameha. So this just protects your entire field. It lets you save your progress over the turn to carry over into another explosive turn. So absolutely fantastic to get a 3 of, and actually quite surprising. Well, that was Nick's King Vegeta deck. If you like the look of it, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. What are things that you would change? What are decks that you would like to see coming forward? What decks have you been enjoying out of set 13? This has been Fluff. This has been a deck profile. Read your cards, know your plays. Let us make mistakes so you don't have to. And as always, Fluff out.